Okay, we're on Chesim and Aleph, 8a, at the two dots, little about a third of the way down the page. Okay. Rebbe Posach Eitzrus B'Shnei Betzuras. I believe this is what we're up to. Anyone can confirm. Does that make sense? At 8a, about in the narrow lines, first two dots, Rebbe Posach Eitzrus. Does it make sense we're holding there?
I thought it was further, but let's start where you are.
No, that might make sense. 1 second. Did you V'kama Yehe Be'ir V'hei K'anshe Ir? Is that what you're up to in the middle, in the wide lines?
Middle of the wide lines.
V'kama Yehe Be'ir. How long do you have to be in the city? Is that what you're up to?
More discusses of the taxes we must pay for them. Papa imposed a tax for the purpose of digging a new well. I don't remember doing that one yet.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, we'll start from V'kama Yehe Be'ir V'hei K'anshe Ir. About halfway through the wide lines. So the Mishnah says that if you're a part of a city, that you have to pay the city tax, for infrastructure. So how long do you have to be in the city to pay the infrastructure tax, the property tax? So the Mishnah says 12 months. So the Gemara asks on that Mishnah. Okay, there's a law called Ir Hanidachas. Ir Hanidachas is an entire city that's indicted and convicted for idol worship. Now, as you can imagine, there's a city, people coming and going. So what happens? For a minute, here's the question. Hachameres v'hagamelas ha'everes nimakom l'makom. You have a caravan that's traveling. Velona b'toicha. It slept in a city that was in Ir Nidachas. And that day, the entire city was convicted of idol worship. Okay, v'hut chimon. And they too were idolaters, Jewish idolaters. Hein b'skila u'mimayin and polat. Because they haven't lived in the city, they were just transitory. So they get the penalty for idol worship, which is skila, stoning. But because they don't live in the city, they don't get the penalty of Ir Nidachas, of a city that worships idols, which is sayef. Sayef is decapitation. Okay. But let's say they waited around for 30 days. Then Haim b'Sayef and Mayin Ovat. Another thing is that the Ir Nidachas city, all the money is laid to waste. The city is laid waste. Nobody gets to, the money is not inherited by their kids. Whereas if a regular person is an idolater, his money is inherited by his kids. So if these people did not live in the city for 30 days, so then their money goes to their kids and they get the regular penalty of idol worship. If they're there for 30 days, then they get the penalty of the city and their money is laid waste. Okay, so over here we see that to become a member of the city, it all takes us 30 days. So depends. Are you a resident of a city? Or are you a member of a city? We'll explain. We'll see in a moment. But membership takes longer to acquire. To be a resident, all it does is you need a established residency. It just takes 30 days. Ketanya we learned. A guy makes a neder that he will not benefit from anybody who's anshe ha'ir, the people of the city. What does that mean? Membership. City membership comes. They have to be there for 12 months. Also, then that person he cannot benefit from. Meaning the people that are still more transitory, or they have not established membership by living there for 12 months. So then those are not members of the city. He's allowed to derive benefit from them. However, let's say he makes his neder miyosh residents of the city. So then it's kol shenishtosh shlam shloshim yom. If you're there for 30 days, you acquire a residency. Also, less than 30 days, then you could derive it. You could benefit. You could enjoy the benefits of. You could benefit from those people. Okay. So basically, this mission draws a distinction between membership of the city and residency. Now, what is the key feature to determine whether or not you're part of an ir hanidachas? So the verse says, "Mi yoshvei ha'ir." Yoshvei ha'ir means residents of the city. However, to pay taxes, you have to be a full-fledged member, and membership only comes once you live there for 12 months. By the way, if you bought a house, then you establish membership immediately. So it's interesting. There's a practical implication to this as well. You know, obviously, Ketzer does not have this distinction, but let's say you have a bunch of Jews move to a neighborhood. So a bunch of Jews move to a neighborhood, they need a shul, right? So they build a shul. Okay, they have a shul for a couple of years. They decide, you know what, shul needs a rabbi. They want to hire a rabbi. So, okay, who's a member of the shul? Who gets to vote for the rabbi? So one of the critical questions is, do you own a house? Or do you rent a house? If you own a house, you're more of a permanent resident. Your membership rights are more important than if you're a renter. Well, what if you're a renter for a couple of years? Then maybe you are more permanent. And different communities have different ways of dealing with this, but there are communities where distinctions are drawn between buyers and renters and how long you've been a member. Your vote has a certain, your voting power is determined by these factors. So I know there's one place where I have specifically in mind where the rule is if you rent, I think for less than 3 years, then your voting rights are a third of somebody who bought, somebody who owns. I guess once you're there for 3 years, you're already considered permanent. You have equal voting rights. Okay. Gemara says, "Call me is it true that it takes 12 months to be obligated in all forms of membership? So membership of the city has, I guess, basically only obligations, right? You have all these obligations to the city now. Do they all take 12 months to materialize? We'll see that some of the obligations take effect on the membership even before 12 months. They're considered a member. We learned. Okay, so we'll talk about some of these in more detail as we go along, but there's a number of different charities that are distributed. Tamchui is food. This is like food bank type of support. What's given out in Tamchui is actual food. Tamchui does not give out checks. They don't give money. They only give out foods. We'll soon see how exactly food is given out, but people are hungry. It's a soup kitchen. Tamchui is an old version of soup kitchen. How do you collect tamchui? You go around with a big plate, and everybody puts food on the plate. That's the collection. So if you live in a city for 30 days, then you're obligated to participate in the tamchui collection. If it's 3 months, then you have to participate in what's called a kupa. A kupa is what in modern cities, some places have an organization called Tomechei Shabbos. It literally means supporters of Shabbos. And what it means is that Tomechei Shabbos gives a combination of money and foods, although it's not ready-made food necessarily, and it's given out once a week to the poor. To those that need money for Shabbos, that's sort of what the idea of the kupa is. Kupa is the basic charity. It's for money for food, but it's also money for clothing, etc. I'm sorry. It's mostly money for food. Like sus to money for clothing. So that's Tisha. You have to be in the Kupa Shisha for 6 months. Sus for clothing. Tisha 9 months. Lekvura for the obligation to participate in the burial of the poor people of the city. I'm sorry. I read this wrong. I'm sorry. Tisha Lekfur, 9 months for burial. It's 30 days for Tamchui, 3 months for Kupa, 6 months for clothing, 9 months for burial. 12 months for the Pasei Ha'ir. These are the walls of the city, the gates the gates of the city. So it's an infrastructure project. It takes 12 months. But the mission says you get membership 12 months. It means for infrastructure. For the charity, the truth is you're obligated to participate in the charities at a much earlier stage. But for big infrastructure projects, you have to be there for at least a year. The Amr Basi Amr B'Yechanan, Rabat says the name of B'Yechanan, Hakol Lapasi Ir Afilu Miyasmi. Everyone must participate in the building of the gates, even orphans. Aval Rabbanon Loi, but the rabbis do not need to participate. The Rabbanon Loi Tzruchin Tirusa, because the wall of the city is for protection, and the rabbis do not need protection. I'm sure Baruch Tov, Rabbi Diskin did that with you yesterday.
Right.
Multiple sources where rabbis don't need protection. Amar Papa says, Lashura, this is for a wall. Ula Parsha, this is a security guard. Ula Tarzina, these are weapons, not just weapons, but also an armory with a there's a word for this in English. I can't remember what it is. The guy who protects the armory. So everybody has to participate in these taxes. But the rabbis, like Tzrichin and Tirusa, they do not need to participate because they don't need to be protected. Call the Milsa, call Milsa the Islu and Nominea, feel miyasmi. Anything where all the residents derive benefit, that collection is even from orphans. Rabba Ramat Staka Ayasmi the Bebar Marian. Rabba demanded that the orphans of Bar Marian was a very rich, powerful person. He demanded that his orphans pay a tax. And that tax was basically charity. It was given to charity. One second, didn't Rav Shmuel say that you cannot charge the orphans for charity? They're orphans. So in orphans, we have trustees to take care of them because they're all minors. An orphan, by definition, here is a minor. So if the trustees do not pay charity because the orphans are not obligated to participate. So Amarlei, so Rabba says, no, I wasn't forcing them to participate. I was doing this because they come from a very wealthy family. It's a very prestigious family, and it's not respectful that I ask everybody for charity and they feel like they're not asked for charity. It's sort of it denies their standing in the community. Everybody's giving charity, and these very wealthy, prominent people are not even being invited. So therefore, I wasn't charging them for it. I was offering them the possibility of contributing.
Wait, this is wealthy orphans?
So their father was a very, very well-known wealthy guy. Bebar Marian is a very prominent guy in Talmud. He shows up in a bunch of places.
The orphans of the family were very wealthy.
Right. So his orphans are presumably wealthy and also presumably prominent. So he wanted to let them at least participate if they wanted to in whatever charity discussion was ongoing. Ifra Hormiz, Ime de Shvur Malka. There was a person whose name was Ifra Hormiz. He was the mother of Shvur Malka. Shodra Arnaki the Dinri le Kameder of Yosef. See, he sent a bag of coins to Rav Yosef. Amrlei, Ifra Hormiz, the mother of Shvur Malka, says to Rav Yosef, Lehev mitzvah rabba. It should be for a great mitzvah. So Yosef Rav Yosef come ayinba. He says, "My mitzvah rabba." What is a mitzvah rabba? What's a great mitzvah? What's she referring to? Like, what type of mitzvah should we do? Abayah says, I have an idea. Miditani Rav Shmuel Bar Yehudah ain't paiskin al tzedakah al yitzayim afilu pidyon shvuyim. Rav Shmuel Bar Yehudah says you don't charge orphans for charity, even for redemption of captives. What's the even? Meaning as if like I would think maybe that you don't charge for regular charity, but redeeming captives, that's the most important charity that you would. So therefore, he had to say, no. Redemption of captives is the same to everything else. The fact that he considered it to be different tells me what? That maybe there is a difference. What's that difference? It's extremely important. Shmami, no, we see from here. Range. Pidyon Shvuyim mitzvah rabba. Pidyon Shvuyim is a great mitzvah, and therefore that is what you should go do with the money. Amalei Rava Rabbi Bar Mori. Rava says to Rabbi Bar Mori, "Minoha milsa the Amar Rabbanon the Pidyon Shvuyim mitzvah rabbi." So Rava wants to know, how do I know this? Where do I know? What's the source that I know that tells me that redemption of captives is this great important mitzvah? Because the verse states, this is sadly a list of tragedies. Where should we go? You tell them, this is the word of God. Those for death to death. Okay, what is mavis? Mavis is more like routine deaths. These are deaths from illness, old age, the type of deaths that people typically aren't very surprised about. Okay, v'asher lacherev. Cherev is those that die in battle or those that are executed. So those that will die will die. V'asher lacherev, those to the sword, meaning execution or being killed, slayed on the battlefield. Lacherev, to be executed. V'asher larov, those that die in hunger. Larov will die in hunger. V'asher lashavi, those that were taken into captivity will be taken into captivity. Meaning wherever you run, it's not going to help you. Whatever God has ordained will transpire. Rav Yechon says, this verse is light to heavy, meaning the lightest type of death. Okay, so 1 second. Okay, so let's go through it. Cherev kasham imavis, execution or being slayed on the battlefield is worse than the normal type of death. Why? I could prove it to you from a verse, or I could tell you logically. The logic is execution or death not only kills the person, but also disgraces the body. Whereas a person who dies from old age, it's very tragic and very sad, but at least the body isn't disgraced. Another version, another possibility is a kra. This is more of a homiletic interpretation. Yakar be'eni Hashem hamavsalah chasidav. Yakar is precious in the eyes of God. Hamavsa. Maves of those that are chasidim, those that are exceedingly righteous. Meaning, when God has to take the righteous, the type of death He's giving them is maves, is death, not cherev. He's not allowing them to be slain on the battlefield. Instead, He's killing them with the regular deaths, basically old age and illness. Okay, obviously this is not the simple interpretation of the verse. If you can go through this is one of the verses in Hallel. You can read through it. This is not the simple interpretation. Okay. Rov kashmi cherev. Hunger is worse than the swords, worse than execution. Logically, it makes sense because raw of hunger comes with a tremendous amount of pain. People that die of hunger don't die an easy, pleasant death. But the one who dies in execution, he dies in an immediate death, a relatively immediate death. Another possibility is a verse. Better are those that were slain by the sword than those that perished in hunger. Shvi, hunger, kasha mikulan, is worse than all of these. Why? Tekulu isnahube. Because in captivity, one is subject to the mercy of their captors, and they suffer all of these penalties, all of these tragedies and suffering. Okay, that's why redeeming captives is a great mitzvah, and this obviously includes praying for the release of the 120 or so captives that are still in Gaza. It's a great and tremendous mitzvah. It's one of the most important mitzvahs, and every now and then you do have the opportunity to participate in somebody who's unjustly incarcerated will be in the same category. I do have to warn you though that you do have to make sure that they're actually unjustly incarcerated. Somebody who's justly incarcerated is not entitled to pidyon shvuyin. It's very clear in halacha. If the guy violates the law and ends up in prison, and he knowingly violated, he's not incarcerated because of anti-Semitism or anything like that, then there's no obligation to pidyon shvuyim. He should have known what he was doing, and you're not obligated to redeem him. If he's getting an unusual or cruel punishment, if he's clearly anti-Semitism involved, or is unjust incarceration for other reasons, and obviously I'm thinking of a number of people here who were able to raise money under the rubric of pidyon shvuyim. So then, even if they might be somewhat guilty, you're strongly encouraged to participate in their redemption. Toner Rabbanon, kupa shel tzedakah nigvitz b'shnayim u'miskalekes b'shloisha. Kupa is a charity box. Okay, meaning this money is going mainly to foods. It's being distributed as food and money. So tamchui is literally fresh food. It's food that would spoil. Kupa is not necessarily food that would spoil. Kupa is grain. Kupa is money. It's oil. It's things that are not. Tamchoy is like by the day. At the end of the day, whatever's left is either sold or disposed of. This is things that will last until tomorrow morning. It's more of a not an immediate near term. It's a little bit longer term. So kupa shel tzedakah, the rule is nigvis b'shnayim. It requires two collectors to collect the kupa. Again, the kupa is money or long-term food. U'mischalekes b'shloisha, and it's given out with three members. Nigvis b'shnayim is collected with two. She'ein oisin sroros al tzibur parchas mishnayim. The key feature here is what's called srora. Srora is what do you call this? Srora is authority. This collecting the kupa requires authority to determine how much each person should participate. It's obviously the wealthier you are, the more you participate. So then, therefore, it requires two people to collect, because anytime you appoint authority over the community, requires at least two. And it's given out with three members. Kedini momentus. Anytime we do a financial transaction, it requires three members. Tamchoy nigvis b'shloisha, mischalekes b'shloisha. Tamchoy is the food collection plate. This is the fresh food. It's collected with three members, and it's given out with three members. Why? Shegvuya v'chiluka shavim. Because giving out and distributing is the same thing. Meaning, what is the tamchoy? They come out with this cart. They go to everybody's houses and they ask them for some whatever you're having for supper. Please give some to the tamchoy. And then they go to the next house. And what's in the next house? A poor person. So what do? They take off the plate, the pizza they just got, and they give it to the poor guy. Then they go to the next house, and etc. They're either distributing or collecting. So therefore, there's three people that have to attend to make sure that the distributions and the collections, the distribution is the collection, and to distribute we need three people. So therefore, we need three people for collection as well. Okay, tamchoy b'chol yom. Tamchoy is done every single day. It's a soup kitchen. It's for those that are incredibly poor. And kupa, the charity box. This is the longer term foods, food that doesn't spoil plus money. Is me'erev Shabbos, erev Shabbos is what we call it. Like I said, it's called Toimche Shabbos. By the way, Toimche is not the same root as the word tamchoy. Tamchoy is a plate. Toimche means to support. They call it today Toimche Shabbos, supporters of Shabbos. Many communities have these types of organizations, and they give out food every Shabbos. The community here, the federation gives out food before holidays. That's a version of the kupa. Okay. Tamchoy la'aniyeh olam, kupa la'aniyeh ha'ir. Tamchoy, the collection plate, it goes for all poor people. Kupa la'aniyeh ha'ir. In order to get money from the kupa, you have to be a member of the city. You have to live here for some amount of time. Urshon b'nei ir lasses kupa tamchoy v'tamchoy kupa. The people of the city, they're allowed to declare that the kupa, money from the kupa, be distributed as tamchoy. So meaning, let's say there's a lot of poor, the soup kitchen needs money. So they can go to the Toimche Shabbos and take money out of Toimche Shabbos and give it to the soup kitchen. Or the reverse. The tamchoy kupa. Or they can take money out of the soup kitchen if there's extra money in that budget and give it out on the weekly distribution. Or if they have some other charity needs, they can adjust the monies. They can move the money from charity to charity. Additionally, this is very interesting. So now we get to the rules of self-governance. Municipalities. It's interesting. We spoke in the past about Mציעא a lot about Dina de Malchus Adina, right? Following the law of the country, which is primarily an obligation about taxes. It's not necessarily an obligation to listen to state zoning requirements. However, when you get to the municipal relationship, it's very different. Municipalities are not just empowered under the rubric of Dina de Malchus Adina to collect the tax, but they're also empowered under a different rubric, which is this. A municipality, in a certain sense, under Torah law, has more. The obligations of the municipality are more binding on the members of the municipality than perhaps state or federal regulations. And this is the halacha that we're learning right now, because there's another concept here. Besides for the idea of government, which Torah obviously recognizes as valid, most specifically with regard to taxes, there's also the municipality, which is a combination of people that have to run a functional enterprise, right? We need to have paved streets, we need to have lights at night, etc. and we give them a lot of authority. What's the authority? Lahasnas al hamidos. The city can set the size of the units of measurement. They can make them bigger or they can make them smaller. Today, obviously, in America, this is considered, I believe, a state obligation. I think all the scales are controlled by the states. The state measures the scales. They all have stamps on it. Va'ala sha'arim, or on the prices. This would be price controls. They can do a price control. They could put on gasoline tax and these type of things. Val schar poelim, and also on minimum wage, right? You might not like minimum wage as a political enterprise, but the fact is that the Torah recognized the city's authority to set a minimum or maximum wage. It goes both ways. And not only that, they also have authority to penalize you if you don't listen. So obviously, the only way, there has to be an enforcement mechanism. There has to be teeth to these regulations. So therefore, the people of the city have authority to put teeth into the regulations in the form of financial penalty. Okay. Omar Mara, let's go back. So we explained that the kupa, the guys collecting the kupa money, so they have to have two people because it has an authority. Now, the truth of the matter is there could be two reasons here why we would need two people to collect. One reason is authority, but what's the other reason?
Don't steal it.
Oh, very good. And we spoke about it in the past many times, who knows how many times. We said that in order to talk about financial transactions, you need to have two people for reliability of the testimony, trustworthiness. So there's another potential reason here why you would need two people, because without two people are necessary for trustworthiness in financial matters. But that's not what the Brisa says. What's the difference? Meaning, what's the difference if the reasoning here is because of trustworthiness or it's because of authority? Anyone wants to take a guess? If both people are brothers, if the two people are brothers, so as witnesses, they're unreliable because brothers are not reliable, even if their names are Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen. Doesn't make a difference. They're not reliable. Moshe and Aaron would not be able to testify against each other or as a team, as two people testifying. However, in terms of authority, it's two people. They're both honorable, dignified, Moshe and Aaron, greatest members of Klal Yisrael, Jewish people. So they can certainly, and they both had authority. So then it would be permitted. Okay, so the Gemara says, Mino Hanimili, how do we know this? Amar Nachman, Amar Krov, Veheim Yichos Hazov. Plural, they plural will collect the gold, meaning are required multiple people. The problem here is authority, but trustworthiness is not an issue. Why is this? So the Gemara doesn't say this. I'll give my own explanation, which is because this is charity, right? So in other words, the typical requirement for trustworthiness in transaction is between two people. This is not between two people. It's between the charity and their obligation to between them and God, basically. God meaning their obligation to give charity. Okay. But therefore, trustworthiness is not a concern. They're believed even if they don't meet the technical requirement for trustworthy testimony. There was a story, and Rebbe appointed Shnei Achen ala Kupa. Two brothers were appointed as the collectors of the Kupa, of the weekly charity. Meister Rusa, what exactly is the authority that they have? We keep on talking about authority. What type of authority do they have? Obviously, it doesn't take any authority to knock on your door and ask you for money. Authority obviously means that they have some sort of compulsory authority. What exactly can they put down? What can they force? The Gemara says, the Amar of Nachman Amar Baravua, Lefisha and Mashkin and Al Tzedakah, Afilu B'erev Shabbos. Because if the collectors have a right to assess everyone's obligation for the kupa, you must participate in the kupa. Kupa obviously is going to the poor. It's going on a regular basis. This is not a charity that's sort of questionable. These are really poor people that are getting money on a frequent basis, or even food sometimes. Okay, so therefore, if you don't participate, they can collateralize your assets and force you to participate. So that requires authority, and that's why they need to be two members collecting. So the Gemara says, any question. The verse says, if ikadti akol lechotzav. The verse says, I will appoint those that will use compulsory authority. 1 second. Meaning, meaning that sort of God will remember what the charity collectors did by putting pressure, by putting lachats. And Gemara presumes here to include collateralization, that they've collateralized people's assets, and God is sort of going to punish them for doing so, meaning presumably that it's forbidden. So why are we saying that the authority of the collector is to collateralize when it seems to be forbidden for the collector to collateralize? So the Gemara resolves this like Hasha, it depends if he's wealthy or if he's not wealthy. Like
the wealthy paying their own way, or they're not. This is an old problem.
Yeah. So the story of Rab of Forest of Nassim Barami, who apparently was very wealthy. He took 400 zuz, a lot of money. And it's got to be between $10,000 and $60,000, depending on how you calculate it. And 200 zuz is the amount it takes for one person to live a year, and the cheapest, lowest level standard. Okay, so it's a lot of money here. It's 2 years worth. And he took away the money because Rav Nassim Bar Ami was a very rich person, and he decided this is what he had to pay to contribute. He didn't want to contribute it, so he just collected it. Okay, now we go through a verse. Maskilim here means like the thought out people. We'll have to explain who they are. Yadzhiru, they will shine kizayar harakia, like the shine of the firmament, of the sky. Who are these maskilim? Who are these very, very very well-informed people, enlightened people? These are the judges that judge correctly. The verse continues, umatstike harabim, those that they perform justice for the community, they do good for the community. Kikachavim lo'olam, they'll be like stars forever. Lo'olam ba'ad, forever and ever. Who is this referring to? Elu gaboy tzedakah, these refer to charity collectors. In the Brisa we learned, the enlightened ones will shine like the shine of the sky. Who's this referring to? This refers to both judges that judge properly and charity collectors. Those that do good for the community will be like stars forever. Who are these people that do good for the community? Elu malamdi tinoikis. These are the rabbeim, the teachers of young students. So the Gemara says kigoyin man, like who? Amarav had like who would fit in this category? It's like a star forever and ever. Kigoyin Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas, like Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas, who was a well-known educator of young students. For example, the Rav Ashkel Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas to have a koi beginsa. He found him in the garden. I guess he was relaxing. So Amarlei, so he made a joke to him. He says, "Shafke lehem nusach. Did you retire? Did you find a better job?" So Amarlei, he says, "You should know, it's been 13 years since I've been in my own garden. Haven't been in this garden for 13 years. And now the only thing I'm doing in this garden is thinking about how I'm teaching tomorrow." He's a pretty dedicated teacher. Rabbanon Mai, and okay, so we learned about all these people. What about a regular scholar who doesn't teach students? What is he compared to? Ravina says, "V'oyavav," in the God's lovers, kitseis hashemesh b'gvorosai, like the sun when it comes out in its strength. This is a great blessing in being a scholar as well. Tana Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Gaboy tzedakah einu rishon lifresh zemizeh avol perish zel sharav zel chanos. Okay, we said there's two people collecting, or sometimes three in the case of a tamchoy, and they have to operate as a team. They can't say, you take the East 15th Street, and I'll take 14th Street. It doesn't work that way. But if they're in a supermarket, if they're in a marketplace together, they can each sort of go to different stalls. So as long as it's visible that there's two people collecting here at the same time. Okay, very important. While you're on duty, Motza Mois B'Shuk, the collector finds money on the floor. It's ownerless money. It should be his. You're not allowed to put it into your pocket. You put it into the charity box, stock of charity. And when he comes home, remember, there's always two collectors. So you tell the other guy, here's the $100 I found on the floor. You put it in the charity box, and you come home, you take the $100 out of the box. Similarly, the charity collector was wealthy. It's interesting that in Gateshead, I believe the charity collector of the community is one of the richest guys in the community.
You wonder.
What?
You wonder then, right?
Yeah.
Don't you?
So no, there's a lot of communities, because it pulls a lot of the shame out of collecting when the richest guy in the community is the one who has the job. There are other communities where this is common as well. Certain Hasidic communities, the collection is done by the wealthy people in the community. Okay, it should be clear, the collection for the poor.
Poor.
So they sort of they're humbled by that experience.
Mhm.
Okay, poor b'shuk. So the guy the charity collector was a wealthy guy. People owed him money. So one guy comes running to the middle of the marketplace to pay back his debts. Poor b'shuk, he pays him back in the marketplace. He said, don't put it into your own wallet. Don't put it into your own wallet. Put it into the charity box. When you come home, you'll take it out of the charity box. You have charity collectors there's a lot of money in the charity box, but there aren't a lot of poor people. The problem here is the coins are made out of copper, and copper coins they corrode. They don't last very long. I just passed by the Statue of Liberty not that long ago. About a day, I flew over it. Right, corroded pretty quickly. It was nice in copper for a little bit, and then it turned green. So they have to get rid of the coins. What do? They go to a money changer, but it can't be themselves. They have to go to another money changer. They can't use their own services. So they collected a bunch of fresh foods, and there's no more poor people. There's a lot of extra food. What do? They sell the food, not to themselves, to other people. So very often, this is like you see people have a pile of money, right? Coins typically, and they have to count them. So what do? They count them in groups, right? They take 3 fingers, 3, 6, 9, or they do 2 at a time. This is 5 at a time. It's easier to count. Don't do it. Don't do shtayim. Count them 1 at a time to make sure you have an accurate number. Amar Abayim, Miresh have Yosef Mara Tzipi Debe Kanishta. Initially, I would not sit on the mats of the shul, because these mats were purchased with the charity money. However, once I found out that you're allowed to use the charity money to, let's say, for shul expenses, if there aren't enough poor people, so then Havi Yosef, then I wasn't concerned that people would think because I'm a charity collector, I'm sort of taking advantage of my own money, because they understand the money was switched over to be used for the shul. Amar Abaya says, Miresh have oven mar trei kise, chad la'anid alma v'chad la'anid masa. Initially, I would make 2 collection cups, one for the community and one for the general poor people, that even if they're not members of the community. Kivin neshama lahada amar le'shmuel of techlifa barav dimi oven chad kasa. V'asni Allah. Since I heard that the concept that was just expressed by 1 second here, which is of Shmuel that Shmuel said to Rav Chlifa, meaning the concept that if the kupa money is given to local residents first. If there's extra money, it can go to general residents. Abaya said, let me start off by collecting 2 separate cups, one for the local residents, one for the general people that are hanging out in town. But then he realized, no, I can just collect in one. And then if it's extra, I switch it over to the general population, meaning not those that are residents. So then he would also use only 1 cup, and he'd make a condition that if there was extra, it would go to poor people that are in town that aren't residents. Rav Ashi Amar, called the Ka'asi Adai Didi Asi. Rav Ashi says everybody knows that I am in charge of the charity, and I distribute charity according to a certain set of priorities. But once the high priorities are met, then I go to the lower priorities. So therefore, I don't even have to tell people this is for the local population, and if there's extra, it'll go for the general population. There's no need for that. People know, and they know how I collect. They know my system of distributing, and therefore it's not necessary to make any such condition. It's great to be back here. Have a great day.
Have you back. Hey, making a great. Actually,